أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, brothers, sisters. Alhamdulillah, it's good to be here with you. Had a long journey getting down from Bradford, but alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah, we got here on time, and it's good to be here with you. Brothers, the subject today is a very, very serious matter. And I want to begin with a dua, and we should be making this dua. Ya Allah, keep our shabab in particular, keep their hearts pure, keep their fitrah intact, and establish in them haya. Because this society, in this talk we're talking about, it's a very serious matter. This is a global phenomena which has now become mainstream in societies around the world. It's called the pornification of society. As a result of this, we are talking about some of the most despicable materials which show human beings in the most despicable state is accessible to children now. Now, fortunately, I've been, like I said, in this position where I've been involved in advising government and various other bodies. And it's interesting, now the government are taking the same position as us. David Cameron, for example, wants to ban pornography and wants to put greater restrictions on all these sites. Iceland as a country, and anyone who knows anything about Iceland, is a very liberal country itself. One of the most liberal countries, you could say, in the world, itself wants to put greater restrictions, banning all pornographic sites that are coming into Iceland. We get report after report, which is talking about the destructive effect that pornography is having upon children, leave alone adults, upon children, because of the ease of access and the fact that pornographic culture is not just now something which is a marginal activity that is done in hidden spaces, secretively, because people are embarrassed about it. Pornography now, na'uzubillah, is mainstream. And it is embedded in so many mainstream aspects of society. And we talk about this subject as Muslims to preserve our iman and prevent the disintegration of our fitrah and our haya. But we also talk about it from a societal point of view. Because this is not just about a moral mission that we have. This is a moral mission that we have to rid humanity of this evil of pornography, which is destroying societies. And is an instrument of shaitan. It's an instrument of the taghut that is there to destabilize the family, to destabilize masculinity, as I'll talk about as well. It completely destroys masculinity. I can't talk about this subject as explicitly as I want to talk about this subject because you have to give everyone a reality check of what we are talking about. And I want to say, this is why I made that dua at the beginning, Ya Allah, protect our shabab. Ya Allah, keep them, as Allah says, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ. Ya Allah, keep them so that their chastity, their purity is protected. Because let me tell you, one hit of porn is enough to addict an individual. Because we are talking about something, and this is not made up, and this is from me wearing my psychologist hat, not made up. We are talking about something which is as addictive as cocaine and heroin. Where there are nearly 100 million addicts to pornography around the world, and the people that I work with who have pornography addiction are individuals who are finding it, because once the fitrah, as I'll explain, has become corrupted and tainted with this, there is always a weakness there. Of course, there is a way to reprogram, and there is a way to purify the heart, and there is a way to return back to purity. Of course, there is a way. But there will always be a weakness. And that's why, look, our deen, and let's just to establish, we begin with the verse that I mentioned, that, Allah Ta'ala enjoins upon us, adl wal ihsan. everything we do is to our excellent ability. وَإِتَاءِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى وَيَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ وَالْبَغِي. And that Allah Ta'ala says, and keep away from the fahisha, the sexual indecency, munkar, and the transgression against Allah. He admonishes you that you may take heed. So from this principle, this is why we are talking about this subject that many, many people brush under the carpet. We need to talk about this challenge because this is a means to, like I said, undermine Iman and Taqwa. Now the hadith of Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman radiallahu anhu, he explained that many of the people used to ask the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about the khair, about the good. I used to ask about the shar, for fear that it might catch hold of me. So from this that we learn, Muslims have to be what I call proactive in identifying what are the threats to our aqeedah, what's the threat to our ibadah, our akhlaq and our adab, and to our society. We look at what these threats are, and we need to put the protection and the barriers to defend against these particular threats. And if we're not doing it, then you will see how this thing, and I call it the P bomb, the porn bomb, because it's a way to attack and totally destabilize and undermine a society. Imagine a society which is quite conservative, where there is gender segregation, where there is, alhamdulillah, morality within that society. Men and women maintain a strong etiquette of conduct between one another. And generally there is an observance of these etiquettes, as Allah Ta'ala says regarding the believing men, قُلِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ يُغُضُّهُمْ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُونَ فُرُوجَهُمْ ذَلِكَ أَزْكَى لَهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا يَصْنَعُونَ. And tell the believing men to lower the gaze and to protect their private parts, and this is better for them and purer for them, and Allah is aware of what they do. So we find an environment where this adab is maintained and respected and observed. Now imagine this happening: satellite TV arriving and providing free pornography, flooding that society, not just through satellite TV, but through the internet, through gaming. If you look at the biggest video game in the world that grossed 1 billion in 48 hours, it was Grand Theft Auto 5, GTA 5, global brand. We've got children, although it's got certificate 18. I know how parents uncritically, because they don't engage their children in this discussion at all, the child is saying, buy me this game, here, have this game. A game that does nothing other than glorify pimping, prostitution, rape culture, misogyny, derogation of women, objectification of nothing other than sex objects. And this is a game that is given to 8-year-olds to play with. Now, once this material enters into a society, you'll see the disintegration of family values in that society. You see the increase of sexual violence, of rape, and many, many other sexual misdemeanors. So this is why, you don't need guns and bombs to attack a land. You can do it in many other ways. And as I'll explain to you, one of the most destructive ways to completely undermine a society is to flood it with pornography. And I remember many years ago, this quote, that an American general, he says, we don't need to send cruise missiles. Each cruise missile costs $1 million or something like that. We don't need to send cruise missiles. All we need to do is send them Baywatch. Anyone who knows 80s, they'll know what Baywatch is. I don't recommend you go on YouTube. Please don't go on YouTube to research. But, so we'll just send them Baywatch. Now, the point is, Baywatch back then, okay, today Baywatch, let me tell you, when I do this presentation for social workers and the like, and I show them, these are the images, and they're shocked when they see this stuff. They are literally shocked. And not only that, as I said, the pornification of society is in everything. It's in music, it's in the rap lyrics, it's in the way that children are required to dress, with girls as young as 9 wearing like I said, T-shirts with things like "come and get me" on it and things like this, and their parents, laughing and joking that this is somehow something which is innocent. Okay, there's so many manifestations of it. When I show, for example, the rap lyrics, okay, and I put some Dr. Dre up there and I show them those particular, these teachers, these social workers, these professionals are shocked by the content of what young people are consuming. And then I say to this, and they're shocked by the mild imagery that is associated with this, that has become commonplace now. You look on the cover of Grand Theft Auto, the sexualized imagery on there, this is commonplace. And I'll say this to these teachers and social workers and practitioners, and I'll say this to every parent here as well, because your children sometimes are leading a double life, because they're accessing all this material. It's so available to them, and I'll show you how they're accessing it. And because they're more tech savvy than you, then they're able to obviously, cover up their tracks. They're able to, and I always say to the brothers, just because you have deleted your history, it's still with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Obviously, taqwa is the most important thing. You might delete your history, no one knows, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows your history and knows what you've deleted and knows what your eyes have observed and how it's affected heart, because this is the link between the eyes and the heart. And then Allah will hold you to account in terms of what you have seen. And I'm not going to get into qaba'id, sagha'ir, major or minor sins, but I'll come on to that bit in a minute. But the point here I'm making is that this material we are talking about, that we are shocked by when we see it, it does not touch the sides of young people. They have become desensitized to this kind of pornographic material which is now mainstream. This multi-billion-pound industry. To give you an idea, when I first did the video on the dangers of internet pornography and pornography addiction, it got about 60,000 hits. So quite a lot of hits for a video like this. It's more hits than any other video I've ever done. And lots of people phone me up. Every week I'll get a call from someone who is addicted to pornography. And I also want to make it clear that Muslims are more at risk of pornography addiction than non-Muslims here in the mainstream of society. Muslims are more at risk. I'll come to explain why this is the case. This is more of a danger. This is why it's designed even more. And then on top of that, because most of these people are so ashamed of what they're doing, they don't go for professional help. And so as a result, they live with these particular. So this video got 60,000 hits. One of the porn corporations now, because this is what's happened as pornography has become mainstream, it has been taken over by mega corporations, mega capitalist corporations. And this is again, by supporting this material, you are supporting, this is what I'm saying, you are supporting, the enemies of Allah and systems that are there to destroy humanity, not just Muslims, all of humanity, totally disintegrate the natural fitrah of humanity. So one of these porn corporations is called the Manwin Corporation. And Manwin Corporation, interestingly, offers free porn. It offers loads of free porn sites. When the free porn was being offered, many of the people thought, okay, this is the end of pornography. Rather, what's happened is that the revenues associated with pornography have gone up. In a time of recession, the pornography industry last year, it made $13 billion. $13 billion, subhanAllah. So what does that tell you? It's just like, as I said, with any kind of drug, cocaine, heroin, weed, whatever. The drug dealer always gives you the first fix free. The first hook is always cheap and free. And then the dependency is created on this artificial chemical high. You create the dependency and then you hook them in. And then there is only desensitization, because that's what happens with every drug you take. This phase stage 2, after the first buzz, is that you get what we call tolerance. Therefore, you need more of the same, of a higher intensity to get the same hit as before. So you're always chasing that. So then it creates dependency. And then that dependency requires more and more of that substance. And then the pornography industry continues to provide you more and more extreme aspects of pornography, and you become more and more depraved. And that's why, so this provision, the prohibition is similar to the prohibition of alcohol and gambling, because it's the same thing that is taking place. Allah mentions in the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu innamal khamru wal maisiru wal ansabu wal azlamu rijzun min amali ash-shaytani fajtanibuhu la'allakum tuflihun. So Allah says, look, alcohol, al-khamr. Now al-khamr, the definition of al-khamr, as we know, is anything which causes the distortion of the mind, the befuddling of the mind, so that the person's mental faculty has become deranged. And so therefore everything, not just al-khamr as in wine or spirits or intoxicant, everything which intoxicates the mind is haram. As the Prophet said, All of it is haram. So all of it, just because weed isn't explicitly mentioned in Al-Quran, it doesn't mean that this is excluded. No, it includes the hashish, the cannabis, the weed, all of that is within al-khamr, as well as just as everything else, which causes the altering of the mind. And the neurochemistry associated with it is because drugs, what they do is they cause a surge of various brain neurotransmitters. The most key of one of which is dopamine. That's why you call it dope. Okay, and what you have as a result is a surge in dopamine. This gives you a euphoric state. You feel on a high. And that is the thing that the individual then gets addicted to be on that state of high. In the same thing, gambling. Gambling has the same impact. I don't want to go too much on it. It's the same thing because every time the gambler wins something, poof, there is a dopamine release in the brain. It's highly addictive. And the person's constantly chasing. More. Gamble, more. And do you know where the highest gambling in the whole of the UK it takes place? It takes place here in Birmingham. Here in, in the Lascelles, is it Ladypool area? This is the area which has the highest gambling in the whole of the UK, as they call it, or the gross amount gambled. It's, how much do you think? What is the gross amount gambled in the Lascelles? Perry Bar, no, the Perry Bar area. How much do you think, someone? How many millions gross amount gambled in this area? And you just go out. I remember the last time I came, I did the talk on gambling. There's just 5 betting shops just here around the corner. Anyone got an idea how much? 8 million. Who wants to increase on 8 million? Young man. 9 million, mashallah. Okay, more, higher. 12 million. 100. Okay, who thinks more than 100? Hands up, who thinks more than 100? Okay, who thinks less than 100? Okay, 185 million. Brothers and sisters, this is what I want you to know, that if we don't know what's happening on our street, that there are families and there are men who are putting their families into debt and destitution because they are hooked on fixed odd betting machines. They have the same effect as porn, as cocaine. Same effect. 185 million pounds. That's the gross amount gambled. The actual amount gambled is less, but that's the actual figure that is used of people continue feeding machines and machines and machines. And we're not even talking about online gambling and gambling on your phone, because this is the whole thing about this whole new era. The game has changed. Pornography 20 years ago was the marginal activity. The new technology has made it accessible to everyone, anywhere, at any time. And you will see the crossover with drugs, alcohol, gambling, and pornography, because it's all about the same kind of, has the kind of same root to it. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse associates gambling and drugs with al-ansab and azlam. With, as you know, divination, okay, which is the fortune telling on the al-azlam, the arrows, okay, and like I said, the ansab, which is the slaughtering on the stones of the mushrikun. So why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala associate these things with al-shirk, with shirk? Why? Because when the individual, and this is the nature of addiction, when an individual becomes hooked onto this material, then their whole life revolves around this, becomes their reference point. When do I get my next hit? So the individuals, I have individuals who have porn addiction. And porn, I've got to say, of all of these things, is more addictive because of the nature of men in particular. And women are also, just to make it clear, women have also become addicted to pornography. And then we have strange, sick scenarios where the men force their women to watch pornography as well in the Muslim community. Then on top of that, and the most bizarre thing is that what often ends up happening is because that an individual gets more satisfaction and stimulation from pornography than they dispense with normal sexual activity within marriage. So women become what we call porn widows. This is why porn is completely anti-sex. It's designed to destroy. So when a young person starts watching pornography, one of the things, or clear warnings, that you are destroying your future sex life in marriage. Because your reference becomes this artificial, distorted fantasy world where you have had an artificial dopamine high. And so that is why the people become desensitized to what is the normal world. Now, as I said, this is why we need to look at what all of these particular challenges are. Sometimes, I just want to make a side point here, because we, as I mentioned in the khutbah yesterday as well, we Muslims, it takes us a big kick up the backside to actually wake us up and deal with challenges. We are so reactive. We're never forward thinking in terms of dealing with it. We only start when people start invading our mosques and telling us we have to shut down our schools and they're shutting down Muslim charities, then we start to wake up to start to address these issues. In the same way with regards to the education system, people have forgotten a very fundamental thing. The education system is not about educating people. It's about programming and socializing people to a particular way of life. That's what the education system is about. People seem to know, it's not, that's why, middle-class people send their children to middle-class schools, they get good results, so that they are socialized and programmed to become managers and professionals who fit into a system. And working-class kids go to working-class schools where they're programmed in a particular way. You see, we seem to forget, and I said this is a basic sociological model, it doesn't conflict with our Sharia. There are 4 primary socializers. First is school, next is mass media, that we are completely bombarded with, and that's why pornography falls into the mass media that we are bombarded with. Third is family, and the fourth, you could say, is the broader society. So these are these 3 primary socializers. We've only got one, and that's for family. The solid Muslim family has the role to put all of the values into the children and create that environment of righteousness and goodness, so our children are lil muttaqina imama, to also counteract those 3 others, primary socializers. If the family is not strong, then you are easily going to be just conforming to those others. And pornography is one of the things. That's why you send it to a society to disintegrate that society and to disintegrate family by increasing zina. Whether it's obviously outward zina, fornication and adultery, or it's, as Allah says, although Allah Ta'ala mentions in the Quran, وَلَا يَزْنُونَ, don't make zina, the code really is prevention is better than cure. So really Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَقْرِبُوا الزِّنَا إِنَّهُ كَانَ فَاحِشَةً وَسَاءَ السَّبِيلِ, and don't even come close, qareeb, to zina. For verily it is fahisha, a great evil, okay, and an evil way, and leads one to hell and to transgress the limits of Allah. So Allah says, don't even come close. And so the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is this, that how we mentioned, there is the zina of the tongue. What is the zina of the tongue? It is speaking laghwa and fahisha, indecent speech, immoral speech, sexualized, indecent language. And as I said, look, porn culture has already become mainstream and we have already lost the battle. I did a video, 60,000 hits. This website, I forgot to mention the point. This is one of the small porn corporations, 60 million hits a day. 60 million hits a day compared to 60,000 hits over a year. Who's winning the battle? Grand Theft Auto 5, 1 billion revenue in 48 hours. Biggest game in the world. So we are already losing the battle. And you can see it in the mainstream. So what I said, the zina of the tongue, of indecent language. You know the language I'm talking about. And we hear it, na'udzu billah, on the tongues of our youth. Commonplace. And part of the work I do is in colleges and schools, mainly in Muslim areas. And you are shocked, these children come from Muslim families. Where is the morality and where is the haya that is being taught? We don't, this is what I'm saying, no point blaming everyone else, this is our responsibility. And the language that is used, and I'm brought into the school to do what? Because these young men in school are using aggressive, sexualized language towards the females. And often the non-Muslim teachers in that school will tell me that they are disrespected, and this same sexually abusive language is directed at them. It's bad enough that the language is being used, to use it against teachers, to use it in such. And again, when I work with these kids, most of them are completely desensitized to because I always use the golden rule. And the golden rule is this. And not only is it just sexualized language, as I said, it goes further than this. Inappropriate touching. Inappropriate touching, completely, like I said, going over normal boundaries of behavior, and they think it's acceptable. Like I said, I have to moderate my language here in the Masjid, unfortunately, in terms of some of the cases that I've come across. But one case, I remember I did Jummah Khutbah a while ago, maybe the brother's watching, and the mother was outside, and there was her son, a 16-year-old, and she was very angry. She said, after the khutbah, she said, I'm taking him now to the police station. And she slapping him as well. I said, look, sister, this isn't going to help. Slapping him now isn't going to help. Okay? Why? He was Snapchatting his private parts to a girl in his school. Okay? And that's, and brothers, this is still the tip of the iceberg. And he wanted her to Snapchat her private parts back to him. Snapchat, for anyone who knows, is a particular social media app which, where you can send a 20-second video clip to someone else, and it's not recorded in any way, so therefore there's no trace of the particular mirror. So that's what makes it a popular app amongst the people. One has to ask the question, what has happened with that young Muslim boy that he thinks this is acceptable and normal behavior? And again, it's just like the other 14-year-old I once was brought to when the parents are crying their eyes out. And I've got to say, this is what happens about the reactive mode of how, when the crisis happens, the parents are on the phone to me, crying their eyes out. Come, sort this out, and come and, as if I have, some kind of magic. Okay, I can do some miracle that I can somehow. I said, I will come and do what I can, but I can't undo years and years of neglect because you did not put the values into the children. Like I said, I want you to go back to this model, the simple model. 4 agencies in society: mass media, school, society, and the family. If the family is not strong, and this is where these hadith, which talk about from the year of 0 all the way up until early adolescence, up to early teenage years, when they become baligh, unless if you haven't put the values in there with rahm, with mercy, with love, and if you as a parent are not a role model for your children so they love to behave like you, and if you haven't created a safe environment in your home, and if you haven't had an honest discussion about these things, these dangers which are out there in society that are going to affect you, because you can't wrap them in cotton wool, because you can't do that anymore, because the influence is just everywhere, it's the attack, then you will lose the battle. And I can't come when they are 15, 16 and they've done wrong and just somehow change it overnight. So this is why, again, it's so important that we are proactive in dealing with this. So the sexualized language, that's zina of the tongue. Okay, then there's zina of the hands and the limbs, touching inappropriately, walking towards indecency, typing on the keyboard, moving the mouse, clearing the history, all zina of the hands. I'm not even come on to zina of the eyes yet. Obviously, then there's the zina of the eyes, which is obviously looking. And I've got to say, pornography has been designed in such a way that as men who are hot-blooded, who have testosterone, who have desire for females, and this is again what it says, it totally distorts boundaries. That everyone I have worked with who has watched pornography for a prolonged period of time eventually find watching men in an aroused state is something attractive to them. So what has it done? Except not altered the brain's chemistry. I'll come on to the brain chemistry issues a bit in a minute. So for us, don't even come qareeb, don't even come close to zina. This is the advice. Prevention is better than cure. Don't even put yourself into that. That's why I say to the parents here in particular and to my shabab, there is a temptation. It's pulling you, it's strong, it's attractive, it's designed for this purpose. Don't even go near it. Believe me, I don't want any of my shabab to be even touched by the indecency of this material, even though it's mainstream. Like I said, everywhere on the internet, banner ads. So put ad block on, so no banner on your Mozilla Firefox. Put ad block on, so no banner adverts come on. Because these banner adverts in themselves are pornographic. As I said, porn's gone mainstream. You just have to go down the street and you'll see it. Television is an inevitable. People have it, you know, they're not going to get rid of it overnight. But don't make it worse. Don't bring in satellite TV with 500, 600 channels. And these, as you know, many of them are free porn channels as well. I want to say, you know, again, it's bad enough that the ease of access of this material. But as I said, it's mainstream. It is on terrestrial free view. This material that we're talking about is on terrestrial. That's how accessible. And the whole purpose of it is, see, the way that the porn industry works, just like every drug dealer works, is this. They give you your first hit free because they want to hook you onto this particular material. Then after, you only see an escalation of the material that takes place. I'm going to go through because there's a lot to get through. First, I want to go, okay, in terms of the industry, this is a multi-billion-pound industry. I want to talk about 24% of internet searches are about pornography. There are 24 million sites worldwide. 100,000 of those are just in relation to child pornography, na'uzubillah. This is the research. This is the research that they did on child rapists. They were normal people who did not show any tendency to commit such horrific acts of violence and abuse. All of them relate the fact that their journey started with pornography. In fact, Ted Bundy, who is a very famous American serial killer, his video is on YouTube, and he talks about how Ted Bundy became a serial killer in America. He said he started with pornography. And he says, in the prison, all the serial killers and psychopaths and rapists all started with pornography. And I want to put fear into people because this is inevitably what it leads. There are 3 stages. The first stage, obviously, is the initial attraction, then desensitization, then escalation. You look for more, and the escalation comes to a point where unless you do the real thing, it's never going to be good enough. That's why normal people end up becoming rapists and murderers and psychopaths because of it. And Ted Bundy says this is it. He started off with pornography. A lot of people try to criticize it. Oh, he's trying to blame something. No, he says, I take personal responsibility. But he said he started with pornography. Now, what is disturbing about Ted Bundy's example is this. He did his serial killing in the 70s and the 80s when the access to this material was nowhere near the access is today. And if he the hardness of the material was far softer then compared to now. So if Ted Bundy is saying that this is what caused him to become a serial killer, okay, then what about today when the material is even more accessible and it is even more despicable and more harder and harder? And it has to get harder and harder because those people who are addicted to it want harder and harder material. That's why, na'uzubillah, there are 100,000 child porn websites out there, and I don't want to go into some of the absolutely despicable material. But I want to give everyone a wake-up call here because this is one of the things is that, look, the way you get off porn addiction is very simple. When you associate it with pain. This is, again, in Islamic, and not pleasure. As soon as you, and that's why that ayah, وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ حَبَّبَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْإِيمَانَ وَزَيْنَ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ وَقَرَّ عَلَيْكُمُ الْكُفْرَ وَالْفُسُوقَ وَالْإِسْيَانَ. That Allah said, and Allah made to the believers, beloved to them, iman, so they beautify in their hearts. And they have hatred for kufr, fusuq, and isyan, for disbelief, for sinfulness and transgression. So the point is his, and it's also from the conditions of at-tawbah I'm going to talk about. When you hate something, detest it, then you stay away from it. If you have one iota of attraction to that, it pulls you towards it. And this is, again, the same with regards. I want you to have fear here that with regards to, this is a Muslim brother, practicing Muslim brother. Most of the people here, unfortunately, they lead double lives. That's why, by the grace of Allah, He put hijab in our private life. So people don't really know what we are doing. By Allah's grace, that is. This is a practicing brother. They found 3,000 child porn images on his computer. You know? And no matter how he's trying to justify it, there's no justification for it. That's the whole point. There's no justification for it. How this happens is very simply, you got all of this area online. Because look at it, the mere fact that people, when they do it in a hidden way, secretively, often late at night in an isolated way, going to what we call black sites in the dark web. This is a dangerous place to be because of the illegality of the material in the kind of legal sense in this country. Not to the fact that there are loads of other risks of going to the dark web. But part of it is, don't be surprised if someone has put something and viruses and Trojans onto your computer as a result of this. And in fact, one of the brothers who's a PC doctor who goes around, he said the most work they generally get is people who visit pornography sites, and as a result of that, malware comes onto their computer and they don't know how to get rid of it. So then they call them along to put the software on to get rid of these particular things because they're visiting these particular sites. It can happen that, you go, because like I said, there are so many sites like this. What's bizarre also is that Google, they do a world ranking in terms of the search words by the country. So they look at all the different countries, and obviously they got all the statistics on how much access is in Pakistan, in Yemen, etc., etc. They've got this access, and it's, brothers, it's no point saying, oh, this is made up. When you look at this particular survey of how many Google porn hits a year and the keywords that are used, it is embarrassing. When you look at the Muslim countries, and that disproportionately, they're saying the highest number of porn hits are in Muslim countries compared to non-Muslim countries. I said earlier on that Muslims are more at risk. Let me tell you why Muslims are more at risk of pornographic material than any other community. Because in the mainstream, if you want a sexual outlet, you can go and make zina. You can have a girlfriend. You can do what you want. You're free to do what you want. In the Muslim community, obviously for us, that's why the recommendation is for marriage, and marriage as young as possible. Why? To build healthy families. So that mawaddatan wa rahmah, love and mercy, not sexual indecency and zina, is in there, healthy. And our religion is so beautiful. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that when the husband and wife enjoy each other, this is sadaqah, yours is ibadah. You tell me a religion where enjoyment between the husband and wife is ibadah. How amazing is this? Why? Because it's done in the halal way, not in the haram way. So for us, this is and therefore, if you do not allow the shabab to get married, expect fitna. Simple as that. We should expect the fitna, and we see this. And when, again, people are unfulfilled in their marriages, or they are, not satisfied because they don't seek help, or they didn't realize that they need to move on, all these kind of things, and we have taboos about divorce and all that. When we are not marrying, when we are not behaving upon the way of the sunnah in these matters, then expect the fitna, and we have this. Then on top of that, many people, they don't have an outlet. And so as a result of not having an outlet, this material is far more powerful, has a stronger hook into the individual than the non-Muslim who has an outlet. And that's why I believe this material is more destructive. You'll see it. Anyway, 420 million pages worldwide, 68 million daily searches. It goes on. 13 billion pounds. And what they roughly average is currently, the biggest users are 35 to 44. Children as young as 8, 9, 10 years of age are accessing this material. It's more accessible than it's ever been because of smartphones. You know it, how our youth are just sharing images with themselves on their smartphones. And I've found laptops full of material. Laptops full of material and bizarrely, again, when I speak to some of these youth, they talk about the fact that, okay, I didn't know it was haram. They don't even know it's haram, because no one has even told them that this is haram material. They've not even had that talk, because we don't have this talk. And that's why, alhamdulillah, many years ago in this masjid, we were pioneering. We set up the first Islamic SRE program, sex and relationship education program. We had boys to men, alhamdulillah, in this masjid. I remember doing the introduction. We had over 200 people come to it. Alhamdulillah, this was groundbreaking work. The point of the matter is that we need to have these workshops every week. Not every now and then, every week. Parents need to be equipped in terms of how to deal with this material. Moving on, inshallah, pornification of society. So as I said, this has become mainstream. It is an epidemic, and it is changing the value system and the belief system. As a result of that, we find rape culture, and we find this sexually indecent culture has become, and this is what I call the construction of masculinity. It's destroyed what it means to be al-rijal now. Our youngsters out there on the street who are exposed to this material, you see, they think they are men. They think, they don't even know what masculinity is, because they associate masculinity now, today, with violence, with control, with abuse, with being sexually active, with being, materialistic. This is what masculinity associates. And as we know, the embodiment for us of masculinity is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And what does he embody? Raham, adl, haya. These are the qualities: justice, compassion, mercy. All of these things. Where do we see this celebrated amongst the so-called macho culture of the young? Instead, like I said, porn also went into the music industry, and in particular, the worst aspect of the music industry, as we know, is the gangster rap, the rap material that we find again consumed by the same youth with the same aggressive, sexualized language. By the age of 13, 80% of young men have been exposed to this particular media. 80%. That's how powerful this particular is. And this mainstream nature, because the mainstream has become pornographic now, then what do you think happened to the porn industry? The porn industry then had to go harder and harder and harder. So the genres of porn, now you see, that's why it is a level. And I don't know how, and I mentioned this many talks, I don't know how this material is not criminal material. It's criminal material. The way that men abuse women, the language that is used, the violence that is used, the torture that is used, the racism that is used. This is criminal behavior. If any of us did this in the street, and this is put under the bizarre kind of realm of freedom of expression and freedom of speech, subhanAllah. It's just, again, it shows you how, so again, kind of the sickness and the extremity of the material. That's why you find that countries as Iceland are considering banning this multi-billion-pound industry. Again, we're having all these reviews at the moment about how can we stop this. But unfortunately, you can't stop it because, as they say, the horse has bolted. There is no way you can control this thing. The other thing about pornography is that it's hijacked, as we know, what we call the family. It's hijacked. It's actually something which is completely anti-sex. As I said, individuals, males who are exposed to this material, you see. And, this is, and I'm using this case. I'm sure the brother will not mind me using this case for educational purposes. So this is a brother who was observing material. The material he was observing was of a particular indecent kind of aspect. He then called up a prostitute to meet of this nature. Again, and it was of a homosexual nature. So it just goes to show you what happens, in terms of it. And I'm not even got onto it because the time is short, only before Salat al-Isha, about the denigration and the humiliation of women. And this is why on this level you find a lot of feminists, they generally agree with what our position is in this matter, because we hate it. For us, women are not to be objectified as objects, but obviously they are beautiful creatures that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, to be honored, to be treated with dignity and respect. And that's what our deen teaches us. As the Prophet said, the best of you is the one who is best linisa'ihim, to the women. And, treat the women, istawsu bin nisa khaira, treat the women with kindness. Many, many hadith that we have about the honoring and the respecting of women, the mothers. And I said, the golden rule for us is that, what would we do if this was our own sister or our own daughter or our own female relative? This would be despicable to us. So therefore, equally is despicable the fact that it's someone else's sister and daughter. This material, this objectification and denigration of women is nothing other than complete misogyny. Misogyny means complete hatred for women. So when they say that Islam treats women in a particular way, like I said, this multi-billion-pound industry supported by mega corporations that are floated on Wall Street, that people buy shares into, that people, like I said, find is just trivial, and they trivialize it. Like I said, this is the most misogynistic kind of medium that there is in the world. Okay, to move on. What we're finding is that a lot of the researchers that are talking about young people, boys in particular, who are being reared on this cruel pornography, what they find end up happening is that they end up desensitized to it. They start having a reduced empathy for rape. Okay, and sexual violence and rape is something, okay, they think women dressed provocatively should be raped and deserve it. They act in a sexually aggressive manner towards it. They lose interest in normal activity. Okay, increase, so this is all part of this because of the acceptance of this particular. So a lot of the research on porn and violence, it's clear that in terms of porn and violence, there is a clear link, as I mentioned, with regards to Ted Bundy and things like this. So what happens with regards to the pornography addiction? You see, the nature of why does porn addiction take place? Again, it's related to the nature of the material, our brains being on pornography. In fact, what it's called is, there's a particular scientific phenomenon, it's called the Coolidge Effect. Coolidge Effect is this, that when they found with animals is this, with rats in particular, when a rat was mating with another rat, it loses interest. But then we put a new rat into the cage, it gets interest again. And then it loses interest, so then you put a new rat, and then it gains interest, and it will keep on going on and on, okay? Because each new rat that comes in for the male rat creates a dopamine boost. And so this is exactly what pornography does. It provides a non-stop stream of dopamine surge to the brain. So the person's interest, when you lose interest, next, click, 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 click. And that's why, again, individuals I work with, after 6 or 7 hours, they're still not satisfied because of this constant, like I said, surging of dopamine in the brain. And that's why, again, the nature of the porn industry is such that it continues to provide more and more extreme and sick material. Now, all of this has this effect. And this is where I want you to understand, look at what Islam teaches us in relation to this. It rewires the brain. It changes, it's called neuroplasticity. That what it does is that this stimulation causes neurons in the brain cells to create pathways and connections, and it creates all these chemical pathways. In fact, the theory is that when you have this, it leaves a stain, a chemical kind of stain that stays there. It becomes embedded as behavior. That's what it means. It becomes an embedded chemical path in your brain. Just like the Prophet ﷺ told us that when an individual sins, a black spot is put upon the heart. And if they continue to sin, the heart is covered. Such that the heart becomes completely covered in this this rust, this blackness. And it becomes impervious to Iman. It's the same thing you are creating. Now, the only thing which, so your brain is being rewired. There's a very famous theory which states this, that by the age of 21, American males have been exposed to 10,000 hours. It's a very famous researcher that's done this, psychologist, 10,000 hours of pornography, gaming, and surfing. And this is causing the rewiring of the brain, i.e. the altering of the fitrah, the disintegration of haya. That's what all of this is about. And once it starts, like I said, the first hit creates that chemical pathway, leaves that black spark, which always will remain there. That's the beauty of at-tawbah. So there is a way, and I'll finish with this, there is a way, obviously, for us to get off this particular material. Alhamdulillah, our deen, udkhul fi silmi kafah, enter into Islam completely. Because Islam gives us a complete solution, alhamdulillah, mind, body, and soul. And making tawbatan nasuha, sincere repentance to Allah. Because sincere repentance has 3 aspects to it. Number 1, immediately stop. Don't continue with the material. Stop as quick as possible so you minimize the damage. Number 2, hatred and disgust for what you have done. And that's the same thing with all, like I said, therapy. When you associate this material with pain and suffering and hardship and adhab from Allah and no longer pleasure, then you start to pull away, you're pushed away from it. As soon as you associate pleasure, you are pulled towards it. So hatred. 3rd thing, follow up a bad deed with a good deed and it wipes it away. So therefore, you want to rewire your brain, you rewire it by doing even more hasanat. And if you have been watching more and more of this material, you need to do even more good deeds to create the other alternative chemical pathways to remove the blackness of the heart, to polish the heart through tawbatan nasuha. That's the only way. Now, I'm not, like I said, the time is short, so I haven't got time to go through all of it. But what I want to talk about is, again, the spiritual therapy, the therapy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us. First, through prayer, through salah. Because as Allah says, Inna salata tanha anil fahshahi wal munkar. Because salah, the whole purpose of salah with khushu is to remove ourselves from fahisha. Sabr. Brothers and God say, those people who are hooked on this material, it is hard. It's a big jihad. You've got to fight that demon. It's a serious demon that's going to pull, because everywhere there are triggers. So part of the therapy is you've got to eliminate all of the triggers and the isolation and the associations that cause you to then go through an automatic behavior of one thing leads to another thing, eventually leads back to that thing. All addicts have this. Tawakkul in Allah. You see, this is, I also see people just not relying on Allah, begging Allah, Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik, Ya Allah, the controller, keep my heart firm. Next, okay, akhuwa, brotherhood, compassion from your brothers. And you need, and this is what they call sponsorship as well. And of course, this is where, again, this has become, a lot of people deal with this in secret. Why? Because they can't talk about it openly. Because they say, we're not allowed to publicize our ma'asi, our sins. We're not allowed to do this, so we can't talk openly about it. And so people suffer, na'uzubillah. But no, this is a different kind of, for the purpose of that person strengthening you. You need a sponsor if you have an addict. So I got people that will, and as soon as you feel weak, call the brother up, call that person up. I'm feeling weak. Come, help me, pull me away from it. Part of the reason that pulls you towards it is bad association as well. Take sincere advice, get support, get help. Don't live with this matter because of the evil of it. Dhikr of Allah, and as you know, what is afdal in terms of dhikr is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the book of also, this is also an aspect of ruqya as well. Self, like I said, ruqya, do it on yourself, because this is something where you need to protect yourself through, shifa'an wa rahmu, the ilaj of Al-Quran. Tazkiyah, purification. Make lots of wudu, okay? And, clean, keep yourself physically clean, and do this tazkiyah to nufus as well. Self-accountability and rectification. Take hisab of yourself at night. Take a strong hisab. Imagine yourself before Allah Ta'ala having account. Because look, as I said, the zina of the eyes are in the sam'a wal basra wal fuada. Kullu ulaika kana anhu mas'ula. The hearing, the seeing, even the contemplation of your heart. Allah is going to inquire into all of this. And this is the zina that you did. The zina with your heart, the zina with your eyes, with your hearing, listening, speaking, talking, all of this. Of course, tawbatan nasuha, but also anger management as well, because many of these individuals have problems with the anger issues as well. I just want to finish lastly with one more thing. There is something out there called the 12-step program, and the 12-step program actually was set up by the Christians as part of Alcoholics Anonymous. But when you go through the 12 steps, and it's a good self-help framework, it's something totally in accordance with our deen, alhamdulillah. And when you read it, you'll be amazed, the 12 steps, inshallah. Time is short, but number one said that we admitted we are powerless over this thing, i.e. this thing has become controlling over you. You have become a slave to it. You need to wake up. A lot of people with addiction problems said, I've got no problem. I haven't got a problem with it. Even though and the signs of it, that they're preoccupied, they're lying, they're deceiving, they're destroying their families. They are sometimes, like I said, damaging themselves physically, emotionally, all of these things. And they say, I've got a problem. The first thing, accept that you have a problem. You have become powerless because you've let this thing dominate you and you've become a slave to this thing. Number two, come to the belief that a power greater than ourselves can restore us. Yani only Allah can save us. And only Allah can change the condition of our. Number three, make a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As you understand Him, God, He says that. So this is it. Number three, put your tawakkul in Allah. Okay, number four, make a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. So this is muhasibah. Make a list of all of your moral activity and examine yourself and where you are. Be honest with yourself in terms of your hisab. Number five, admitted to Allah, to ourselves and to other human beings the exact nature of our wrongs. Accept you have done dhulm. Accept you're wrong. This is even from the dua, رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسِنَا وَإِن لَمْ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا وَتَرْحَمْنَا لَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Oh Allah, truly I've wronged my soul. Accept that this is a wrong, this is an evil, this is a sin. Don't live in denial. I have so many people living in denial. Oh, it's nothing wrong with that. Oh, it's just a bit of a relief. Oh, it's innocent. Even some people try to justify it with a Mu'tazila type rationale. It's only a two-dimensional image. It's not something which is real. No, don't live in denial. You know that the evil that this is happening. So that's, admit that we're entirely ready for Allah to remove these defects from our character. Number, humbly ask to remove our shortcomings. And that's again in that dua, were it not for you, Allah, to have rahmah upon me and to forgive me, truly I'm from the khasirun. Make a list of all the people that we have done dhulm to and become willing to make amends. Because again, from Tawbah and Nasuha is qisas as well. And you are making, the one who is a husband who is watching this material, you are doing dhulm to your wife. You are oppressing your wife and you are denying the haqq of your wife. So don't I'm not saying admit it to them, but make amends to this as well. So all the people we have harmed, do this restitude. Otherwise, Allah will do it on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Number 9, make direct amends to such people wherever possible, okay, with the people you have harmed. Number 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we are wrong, to promptly admit it. Continue to make ongoing muhasibah. Number 11, sort through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with Allah. So increase in taqwa through salah. And number 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to others and to practice these principles. It's a beautiful program. The last principle is that now that Allah Ta'ala saved me, my responsibility is to save others. There's a wisdom as well, brothers. There's a wisdom that people go through a particular journey and come out on the other side stronger, alhamdulillah, that they are able to avert other people away from it. And this is finally about amr bil ma'ruf and nahy munkar, enjoining good and forbidding the evil, that now that you know that you have been saved from it, then save others from it. So this 12-step program is a remarkable program. We should be running it in this masjid here, not just for this kind of addiction, but all of the other kinds of addictions out there. We need to run this program. If you look at all the 12-step programs that have been running in Birmingham at the moment, you'll find all of them are run in church halls, which is good credit to them. Credit to them that they are doing this. Okay, but really, are we not here to provide this solution for the whole of society? I'm not just talking about this because we want to save the Muslims and our community and our families. Of course we want to do that. But we have been sent